Hello everybody and welcome to another video. For today's video we're once again going to be revisiting the world of adaptations as we go all the way back to 2008 with this Lost, the video game, or Lost via Domus, depending on the region you are in. For the unfamiliar among you, Lost was a TV show that ran for about 6 seasons between 2004 and 2010. It revolved around the survivors who got stranded on an island when their plane, Oceanic Flight 815, was brought down. And whilst the show starts out with the survivors just learning how to survive and live with each other, the island soon turns out to be much more than it actually appears. The first season of Lost was an absolute cultural phenomenon. It hooked the public through its clever usage of character flashbacks, its slow mystery building, and its setting. As time went on, we'd learn more about these characters, who they were, the circumstances in their lives that led to them being on that flight. We'd learn about a man who was wheelchair bound before he ended up on the island, a lottery winner who thought he was cursed, a con man on the run, a prisoner being escorted back in handcuffs, a former rock star turned drug addict, and so many more. We'd see polar bears, mysterious smoke monsters, learn about the others, find a mysterious hatch, and learn all about the Dharma Initiative. Across the 6 seasons that it aired, we would see some of these questions be answered, and then we'd have new mysteries brought up. Flashbacks would be replaced by flash forwards, and then we'd eventually get to a somewhat divisive ending. The show was not without its critics. There was a writer's strike that hindered some parts of it, and many people did drop the show, realising that this slow burn for answers wasn't quite what they wanted from it. I was not one of them. I absolutely loved this show, and maybe it wasn't perfect, and there were a few times that even I kind of thought it was going a little bit slowly, but I did end up adoring it. I'd happily put it in one of my top 10 shows of all time. With how popular the show was, it did of course make it an obvious candidate for a video game tie-in. Developed and published by Ubisoft, Lost, the video game, would release in 2008 after initially being announced in 2006. It would be set across the first 70 or so days of the survivors landing on the island, placing it across the first 2 seasons or so of the show. You play as an original character, Elliot Maslow, a man who wakes up on the island with no memory of who he is. As the game unfolds, you'll learn who he is, why he was on the flight, and what secrets he may be hiding. It plays as an action-adventure game, with you walking around various locations on the island, talking to other survivors, collecting items, solving puzzles, and with some slight action in between. Critically, it got a bit of a mixed reception. Critics did feel that while fans of the show might enjoy the liberal amounts of fan service, there wasn't really enough here to satisfy non-fans. They critiqued the voice acting, the short length of the game, the action sequences, and in some cases the character models, so quite a bit. But there was some praise reserved for the presentation and elements of the plot. So I'm not really sure what to expect here. I did play this briefly many years ago. I completed a couple of chapters, and I remember thinking it was alright. I do, however, remember the voice acting being, well, it was something. As a fan of the show, I'm expecting that I will enjoy some elements of this going back to it, and the past couple of adaptations we played on the channel have been somewhat decent, so let's hope that this continues that trend. Let's get to it. Our game begins with our protag talking to someone on the plane via a phone, when the plane suddenly starts to experience a little bit of turbulence. There's a creepy man in the background eyeing up our protag. He stands up, starts walking towards him, and then all hell breaks loose. The plane is split in 2, we fade to black with the minimalist Lost logo just floating in. Moments later, we see our guy waking up in a forest area amidst some wreckage. We get control of him and start to figure out what we have to do. We walk around for a little bit and we see a figure of a woman approach her and she vanishes. Ooh, spooky. We go around the corner and we encounter Kate, one of the main characters from the show. She doesn't really seem that interested in speaking with us, but she does give us some water, tells us to leave us alone, leave her alone, and this triggers our first flashback. Flashbacks in the game are handled like this. You will be given a hint via a torn up photograph, and then a scene will play out in front of you. Your task is to take a photo of the correct thing at the exact moment. it's a little bit fiddly. You have to get the framing, the zoom and the focus correct to achieve your goal. The first one, not so tricky to get, but some of the later ones do get a bit more awkward with how you have to position Elliot, how you have to zoom in, waiting for the right moment. You might see in some of the examples we go through here, but certainly as it gets on, it just gets a little bit fiddlier. We do, however, see that Kate is in a pair of handcuffs. We learn from the flight attendant in the flashback that Kate is a fugitive, and that brings us back to present day on the island. Back in the present day, we make our way to the beach. We see the wreckage of the plane and a handful of survivors that we can talk to. Neither really provide much in the way of anything useful due to the seriousness of the situation. We can run around the wreckage, including walking towards one of the engines, which, as we go past it, well, it explodes. And all's well that ends well for our lad, I guess. Back at the checkpoint, we make sure that does not happen again, and we encounter Jack, one of the main sort of character from the franchise. He's a doctor, but before he tells us anything kind of important, he tells us that there is a fuel leak and we need to stop it, otherwise everyone is doomed. So we run across to where the fuel leak is and encounter Locke, who gives us a quick idea of what we need to do before we approach this electrical panel. And this is the first of what is many of the game's primary puzzles. Our task here, insert fuses into slots to direct current, with the aim of ensuring it gets into the green areas on the outputs. This first one is pretty simple, but they do ramp up in complexity as the game goes on, but we get through this one fairly quickly. Afterwards, Jack and our main lad start speaking. We tell him that we actually can't remember anything, and we're tasked with finding anything that might belong to us. We do find a backpack, only to be knocked to the ground by the creepy guy from the plane. He asks us about a camera, mentions a photo and threatens us, but is caught by the other survivors before he can do any lasting damage. He flees, and that's the episode over. So far, so good. It's a fairly gentle introduction to the game, aside from the instant death, but I'm impressed by the presentation here. The general movement and getting around seems okay. Let's have a look at episode 2. This one starts with quite a lot of panicked shouting and noises from the jungle. We see Kate, Jack and Charlie fleeing towards us, with Charlie declaring, well, actually, do you know what? I'll let you all hear this.
Monster!
Are you okay, Charlie? You're sounding a little bit...
Monster!
Do you know what? Never mind. We've got to get ourselves into that jungle, but Jack, being a grumpy old tosser, won't let us. We figure out that we can distract him to get past, and a cheeky flashback gives us the inspiration. So into the jungle we go, and oh hey, I wonder where Locke is.
Over here. I'm over here at the banyan trees.
Locke drops some knowledge on banyan trees. I'd never heard of banyan trees before this game, but now I know that they are capable of saving me from a rampaging smoke monster. What follows next is a stealth sequence. You've got to get from one part of the jungle to the other, but the smoke monster is on the prowl. If you are caught, it's game over. Thankfully, Locke's love for banyan trees comes in handy. Use them for cover during your journey. This isn't too tricky, but it's quite tense. They absolutely nailed the sound design during this section. I cannot fault them here at all. Eventually, we make it through the jungle, get ourselves to a nice little cave where Michael's waiting for us. He warns us about the cave up ahead being dark and how we won't get through it unless we have a source of light. Getting through the cave wasn't too bad. It did take me 2 attempts. You can use your stock lighter as a source of illumination here, or you can use torches that you can pick up or acquire from trading items with one of the characters that you trade with. The lighter doesn't last too long. The torches will last a little bit longer, but if you encounter bats or waterfalls, it will knock them out and drain your fuel. This section, it's not too bad. Again, very atmospheric, it's tense, fits in with the world. Before long, we do make it through the cave and we find another section of the plane in hope that our lad can get his camera back. There's another fuse puzzle to solve before we do so, but we get the camera, leave the section, and then run into some unfriendly people who believe we might be the one, and then they knock us out. So that's 2 chapters where we've been knocked out now. It's not going well for him, is it? On to chapter 3, we start the chapter back in camp, and our quest here is to find a battery for our laptop. Locke can tell us where the batteries are, but he's being a bit of a prick about it, telling us that we don't need laptops or batteries as a fresh start. Well, never mind that, Locke, because a flashback can give us what we need here. Through the flashback, we learn Locke's secret. He was in a wheelchair before the crash, and now he can walk. Through this, we also learn a little bit more about what our protagonist was looking into, a serious sounding mystery indeed. We eventually convince Locke to help us out. He arranges to take us to the batteries, so I go and grab some useful items and head into the jungle. No smoke monster this time, but there is another threat in the jungle. The others are hidden up in trees, and they enjoy taking some pot shots at our lad. Dodging them, not too difficult, but it is sort of a pain. We get through it, find ourselves at the hatch, as of yet unopened. Locke meets up with us, and it's through another cave. At the end of this cave, we don't find the batteries. Instead, we find a compass, and we hear the oncoming arrival of the smoke monster, so we need some help quick. Help that is not forthcoming from Locke, who insists that we show him the compass before he helps us out, because Locke would rather see a man die before we show him a crappy compass. Is it me, or is Locke a bit of an arsehole in this game? Episode eventually over, we have a compass, but no battery. Awesome. So our next episode, episode 4, begins just as there was a loud explosion. Our lads are blowing the hatch, and it's time for us to get our laptop looked at. Back through the jungle, there are a batch of nodes with compass directions left around as we go from one to the next, whilst also being shot at. It's pretty much the same as last time. We do get to the hatch, but we're not allowed in unless we can prove that we were actually on that flight. So we need to learn our name. It's back to the camp, back to another flashback. This one gives us the info that we need. We learn that our guy is called Elliot. He's looking at a guy called Savo, who seems to be involved in some fairly shady stuff. We also learn that Elliot seems to not be well liked by the lady that we encountered at the start of the game. Remember, the one who vanished. It's back to the jungle, back to the hatch, and this was actually quite cool for me as a fan of the show to go into the hatch, its key location, and also put in the legendary lost numbers. From here, a couple more fuse puzzles to solve before it absolutely kicks off. Shutters come down, music blares, weird lights we can activate. These UV lights give us drawings on the walls that point to other Dharma stations. But just as we can reveal our discovery to Jack and Saeed, will they pull a gun on us? It turns out there was some fairly nasty things on Elliot's laptop, and Jack no longer believes we had amnesia or anything about us, because everyone in this game seems to be a massive bellend. Episode done. And only 3 episodes left to go. I'm not really going to go as in-depth with them as I have been from here, but it continues in very much a similar way. You're given a task, have to traverse jungle, watch out for either the others or the smoke monster. You'll probably have a few fuse puzzles to solve, and then talk to some people. You will get some enlightening conversation with Charlie at some point, but it is very much this flow.
You all everybody! You all everybody! You all everybody!
The cool thing about it really is that we get to experience locations from the show, but nothing really gets added. And as we learn more about our main character, I actually kind of come to dislike him more for what he did in his flashbacks, and not really care too much about his journey, especially as we get to the conclusion, which is a fairly unsatisfying one. So let's wrap this one up. Lost isn't a long game, but I do have to admit it's a disappointing one. It starts off really strong. The presentation throughout it cannot be faulted. The way they've got the title cards for each episode, the way you get the recaps at the start of each episode, the sort of feel of it, the flashbacks themselves, all really, really nicely presented. But outside of those little bits of fan service, it's just a really dull experience. It really wasn't helped by an unlikable main character either, whose story I was never really fully invested in. As it went on, as we learned more about him, I just really grew to dislike him. I didn't really feel anything for him. I didn't care about him. And then you had the rest of the cast, who seemed very one-note and warped, nastier versions of themselves on the show. Now, the show itself, the characters are a bit black, not black and white. They're shades of grey. They're not always what they appear to be. They don't always do good things, but you do grow to like them a little bit as you learn more about them. You don't really do that in the game. You just kind of... It's all implied that he is living amongst them, but all you see are the snippets of them. And their actions just kind of serve as a barricade. Don't really feel like they're really helping you. And then you got other side characters, but they're just kind of there. There are some cool ideas in the game. The puzzles aren't too bad, but they're repetitive. There's only really one type of puzzle, and it's putting fuses in electrical circuits. There's stealth segments. Those are genuinely tense. The smoke monster makes for quite a scary enemy, but it does feel like there's something missing. I think there is potential to make something interesting within the Lost franchise, but for me, speaking as a fan, this one fell unfortunately short. To the point where if you are not a fan of the show, I definitely could not recommend it. And even as a fan, it's a bit of a hard sell. Adaptations are a tricky business. Many have fallen short. Some can be very good. Some are very bad. This isn't bad, it's just meh. I really love the show. I would recommend the show to everyone. I know it can be divisive, but I do think it's worth watching. But the game, just unfortunately not something I could recommend. And I never like to say that because I always try to be optimistic. I always try to find something good in there. And yeah, the fan service is good. Walking around the locations from the show is cool. Walking around like the Hydra, the Flame, the Hatch station, finding the ship in the jungle, that's all really neat. But the game itself just does not have enough to really ever make me want to go back. It doesn't have a really good main character. The voice acting is... well, you've seen the examples. I don't need to play the Charlie clip again, do I? Good. But that's what happens sometimes with these things, with these adaptations. We play them, sometimes we end up not quite enjoying them as much as we wanted to. And that's a bit of a shame, because I went into this wanting to like it, but unfortunately it just fell quite short. So with all of that said, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with me? Were you a fan of the show itself? Do let me know in the comments below. Also, do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more retro gaming goodness. I will see you again in a future video. Goodbye.